But I think one of the interesting things about this is that, it would be more encouraging to me if the story about Ngannou dropping Gane is true. Because so much of fighting Ngannou is all that Prime Tyson stuff. But, like, if he's finished everyone in, like, 20 seconds or whatever, you don't have a lot of... it's very uncomfortable dealing with that, like, straight off the bat. And it's the same thing we're going to talk about with Moreno and Davison Figueiredo. One fight with him, he was very timid, cautious, concerned with the big power. Fight number 2, he comes out and he goes, like, what's the worst that can happen? He's already hit me with his hardest shots, and, through no control of mine, I stayed conscious. So, there's stuff you can't control, but if you take someone's big punches, the next time you're like, yeah, actually, that wasn't that bad. I'll just fight him, Whereas even very good fighters get into that when they're worried about someone who's got, like, ungodly power. They get into that habit of being, like, trying to fight perfectly and fight cautiously, and you can't fight perfectly. You're going to get clipped. Like, it's just something that happens. Throwback to that guy on Reddit who was like, Gaethje Chandler can't be fight of the year. Real fighters don't get hit. And you're like, what? No, so what? Real fighters just fight bums the entire time so that they don't get hit. Like, the best defensive boxers in the world get hit when they fight other good boxers. The art and science of boxing is great when you're fighting someone who's less adept in it than you. But the moment you bring two fighters of equal skill together, they're going to take lumps out of each other. So let's get into the habits and stuff. The Ngannou game is largely counterpunches. One of the things that I really like that you can spot in his fighting style from his early fights in the UFC to his later ones is that he's learned to stay in his stance better. Now, that's pretty, like, basic stuff, but if you hit like a fucking sledgehammer, it's very easy to not learn that stuff. If you watch his early fights in the UFC, up to probably just before Andrei Arlovski, whoever he knocked out before then, but it was like he walked up to people, his feet were coming together all the time, kind of like what we were talking about with Canelo, but bad. So his feet are always, like, directly under him, and then the opponent comes in and he tries to step back and swing and lean back at the waist. And it meant that, like, Curtis Blades could do a decent job by jabbing him back and then throwing the right hand on the end because he's leaning back so far, like straight back, not off to the side. But then about the time of the Arlovski fight, he gets his feet spread a bit better, and he bounces back in his stance, and his counters are much sharper there. And, the first Stipe fight, he loses that because as he gets tired, he stands upright more, and he loses the bounce in his feet. The bounce in the feet is a huge thing because it's so hard to keep going at heavyweight. And one of the incredible things about Ciryl Gane is that he can do it for 5 rounds. But just that change, like trying to stay in stance, has made Ngannou a much better fighter. There is that wildness still in him, but the wildness, if guys are going to move back on a straight line or stand there and try and low kick you while you charge in on them, the wildness isn't going to be punished. Like, I'm specifically referencing Rosenstruck there, but, like, if you throw 5 punches winging in a combination, if the guy moves straight back or stands still and tries to low kick you, he's going to come out of that worse, no matter how bad what you're doing is from a tactical perspective. If he were watching you and being careful and circling off, if it's a guy who's just going to lean back and throw a hook or throw a low kick and counter and expects you to work in 1s and 2s, yeah, a 5-punch combination is going to work great. Think of, like, Junior Dos Santos versus Shane Carwin. He hits him with 1-2s, 2 punches at a time. So, like, right, straight, left hook, jab, cross, jab, overhand. Hits him with 2 punches over and over and over again. The moment he throws, like, 4, Carwin covers up for 2, tries to come back, gets hit on the chin with a short punch as he's coming in, and that's the one that hurts him. Because your brain gets used to the rhythm and the pattern. It's one of the things that's, we don't really understand the knockout, but it is the ones you don't see coming that hurt you, and your tendency to look for patterns as a human being sort of lets you down then, because you can't stop yourself from expecting what you've been seeing up to that point. Man, we're getting deep here. I might start talking about flow state in a minute. Fucking hate that. But that second Stipe fight was really impressive because of the use of the low kicks, the body shots. Both Gane and Ngannou use the Kovalev special, throw the right hand, and then, as a throwaway, and then square the hips while you're throwing the right hand. So you use the right hand to square the hips, and then you lunge in with a big jab afterwards, and the jab is like the power shot. He really hurt Stipe with that one. And his takedown defense looked really solid as well, too. Meanwhile, Gane's been really interesting because he started out as like a fairly even switch hitter both sides. In recent fights, he's really been gravitating towards the southpaw a lot more, and he's developed a good jab off both sides, and his southpaw jab seems to be getting better than his orthodox jab. And you'd think the openings are probably more there for the orthodox jab because of the hand fight not being as active. But, you could watch him lance up Lewis, Volkov, Jairzinho Rosenstruck. The Lewis one's really interesting because I just put up the gif that I love of Lewis was reaching with both hands towards Gane's face every time he came into jab because he just didn't know what to do. And like fingers splayed straight into Gane's eyes. There's a great shot along the fence in round one where Gane pumps this jab, snaps Lewis's head back, goes straight into his eye, and Lewis like rakes Gane's eyes on the way in. And Gane pulls back and is like, ow, my eye. And Lewis goes, oh, he poked me. You did the foul, but accuse the other guy of the foul. And the ref doesn't know what to do. It's great. To be fair to Lewis, I don't want to rag on him too much because I think he just wasn't used to that kind of jab. People aren't. Think of like Santiago Ponzinibbio versus Neil Magny. It didn't help that Ponzinibbio has a reputation for poking eyes. But like, Magny kept saying, I've been poked when he was getting a knuckle square in the eye. And if you watch the end of that Lewis fight, one of the ones that really hurts him, like he rallies a little bit after being hurt, and he comes off the fence swinging, and Gane does a really good job of covering up with high elbows. And then Gane pokes him with a jab, and it's another right-handed jab that just goes straight into the eye. And Lewis grabs his own eye and starts shelling up, and that's the beginning of the end for him. Jabs, they fucking hurt. And I mean, it helps when you've got the kind of reach that Gane does because you could stand, you're the same height as these dudes and you could stand at the same range that they think you're on the end of their jab and you can go another couple of inches through their head. Going to be very interesting seeing how that works against Ngannou because Ngannou obviously like huge power but also benefits from having very long arms. The thing is that guys, it's very hard to start swinging on Ngannou or poking at him with jabs and kicks and things because you're always going to be in range for him to hit you back. And then you get into like the Overeem thing where you're trying to run past him throwing punches and if anything, you're opening yourself up more because you're not really doing anything to him. What you want to see from Gane in this one is pokes and as in, poking as in the fighting game term, but like long single strikes from distance and then ducking out the side door or ducking into clinches. He was really good in the Lewis fight at covering up with a high elbow, taking the punch on the high elbow, and at the same time he'd move his head inside their shoulder or Lewis's shoulder. If you put your head on someone's sternum, I mean, you could try this yourself. Be the guy who's got someone's head on their sternum. If you try an uppercut like in front of your chest, you're very weak there. It's like all dealt. And in a fight, when the guy comes in head into your sternum, he's normally pushing you around or pulling you, and it's a lot harder to get any stank on it. So that position should be really important for Gane in this one, and what he did against Lewis and Tanner Boser especially, but close, hit with knees from that position. Smother their offense with their hands, grab a collar tie, hit him with a knee to the body. And his Muay Thai career was basically all knees. He was like a sexy Czech Congo. Czech Congo is sexy. He was like a young, effective Czech Congo with a jab. But I think one of the things that's really going to tell in this match is, you talk about like looking at who's going to be able to establish the jab. But I think in this one, I'm really looking to see if Gane can make the feints work, because there's a difference between feinting effectively and just feinting. You can have like one of three reactions to a feint. You can flinch and reach for it or show your defense for what you think is coming. You can try and counter, or you can do nothing. And a lot of guys will try to do nothing if they start getting faked out. And the important point is that if they stop reacting, you have to fucking hit them. And if you're scared of them coming back at you, you can't do that. And I think that is what kills a lot of guys when they get in with big counter punches. You have to make them work, but you're not able to make them work because you're not able to make them believe that you will hit them. If you look at Lewis's fights against people who aren't Gane, you can take him into the third round and he still have the energy to batter you because you've not driven up the pace. It's not enough to get to the third round. It's a case of you have to make them work. And to do that, you have to be willing to engage in a fight. You have to win. You have to engage in a fight where you're keeping yourself safe and taking precautions and not getting hit with big swings back, but you still are engaging in the fight. Otherwise, they aren't going to respect you enough to tense up when you feint, to react to feints, or to use energy in any way. They'll just walk you down slowly and then batter you, or wait for you. And when you don't feint, or when you don't feel comfortable feinting, you start making the feints very obvious. And then when you want to attack for real, you do a big pause, you bite down on your gum shield, and you go in for real. And it's all so obvious. This gap between feint and real technique just grows the less confident you are in that fight. Also interested to see where the ring craft goes in this one, because Ngannou versus Stipe, he was pressuring him, cutting him down well. Not like elite ring cutting, because Stipe Miocic is not an elite ring circler, but he wasn't chasing after him wildly. He wasn't just ambling across the ring and getting jabbed up. He was pressuring him down, which was, is an important part of it. But like Derek Lewis is in some respects similar to Ngannou, because he's going to try and come back on counters. He wants you to lead and he'll come back on counters for the most part. But in other respects, he's not, because he'll put his back to the fence. The whole fight was just Ciryl Gane pressuring Lewis to the fence. And then when he got him to the fence, he was able to take advantage of that. He was able to hit him with big teeps to the body, step in with knees and smother him, press him against the fence, then do a back elbow over the head and then come out with a regular elbow off the same arm. It was very cool. But, Lewis is a decent judo black belt, and he has shown some cool throws and takedowns in his early UFC career. And actually against Dorcas, he used a nice inside trip attempt. But if you put your back to the fence and let the guy push you there, he's got all the advantages. Plus, there's that counter, the offensive counterpuncher situation where if you get someone's back foot to the fence, that they can't retreat from you, so you can poke them. You can hit them with long, rangy strikes, the front kick to the body. Think of Conor McGregor, great example. Front kick to the body, or jump in on a quick left straight 1-2 or a high kick. And then when they come back at you, which is going to happen eventually, you just fade back and try and counter. You're putting the whole ring behind you, and you're taking away all their retreats. So you're funneling everything down one path towards where you can get on the counter, even though you're fighting very aggressively. I think for Ngannou, one of the interesting things in this fight is going to be the left hook, or certainly to me will be the left hook. I think it was the wide swinging left hook he caught Jairzinho Rozenstruik with, but against a southpaw, that's quite interesting. The very long swinging left hook. And Ngannou, if you watch him, he jabs and he pulls back. And that's when Ngannou can, that lunging. Someone put up a video called, the precise boxing skills of Francis Ngannou on Reddit. And it was just him, swinging wild and leaping after things. But that's when that sort of thing's going to catch you. You're dealing with another 6 foot, is he 6'4" guy? And he's got, an 80-something inch reach, which, Gane has, but, I think Derek Lewis's reach is more human. Volkov was certainly more of a test in terms of poking and getting out reach-wise for Gane. But most of the time, Gane has a big reach advantage, a good bit of height, and he pokes and he leans back at the waist, drops his hands, and that'll get him away from a counterpunch. But if Francis is going for those big committed 2 or 3 swings at a time chasing him back, that's where I'm quite interested in seeing what happens. I think if Francis goes after him, you're probably going to see Ciryl circle off and actually use proper movement. But I think if you catch him coming out at something, you might be able to back him up on a straight line and catch him. I know that we always hammer low kicks to death, but low kicks for Gane important because they are a long, well, certainly outside low kicks in a closed stance. So if he switches orthodox and throws in the outside low kick, or if Ngannou switches southpaw, Gane can throw the southpaw left low kick to the lead leg. But the rear leg to the lead leg outside low kick is one of the longest weapons we have. Maybe not above the knee. Below the knee is always good, but above the knee, it just level with the knee. Those are good, but mainly because it breaks down Francis's stance, brings him back into that tendency of standing high and on top of his feet, which will set up half-assed takedown attempts and things like that, but also set up further offense, take him out of his stance. He can't move his head as well. The slip uppercut he landed on over him that he shows against a lot of his opponents, or tries to, before they fall over when he does something else. But that's all that stuff. It comes off having a more spread base. Like if you look at his old counterpunching game back at the beginning of his UFC career, it's like lean straight back with feet directly under him, trying to swing punches at the same time. You know, all the slicker stuff that he's shown in recent years needs a stance. And if you hammer the lead leg, that's going to take that away. Whether he's picking up the check, that opens him up for more stuff. Front kicks down the center, fake the kick and come with the jab, front kicks into the face, cut kicks if you're feeling flashy. But and actually Gane is very good at pumping the right knee as if he's going to kick and then stepping through and throwing a left knee to the body. But more than that, like JDS had a great deal of success low kicking Ngannou. In the first fight, Stipe had great success low kicking by feinting, and Ngannou would spread his feet and like start to swing a counter and stop himself. And as he did that, Stipe would kick him in the leg and his legs would just go everywhere. Like he'd be falling over himself. It's amazing how much he threw him off with the low kicks in that fight just by feinting, just taking a stutter, just not like feint, watch him do something and do something back, but like shoulder feint into low kick. He'd get him swinging and take his legs out from underneath him. The inside low kick worked really well because Ngannou spreads his legs so wide to start throwing like right uppercuts and so on. So low kicks for Gane in that sense, but for Ngannou, low kicks because if you've got a guy with mobility, the first thing you want to do is take that away. You know, whether that's by hammering his legs and hurting him or making him pick his legs up. It's a lot harder to fucking dance around the ring when you have to pick a leg up and stand on one leg from time to time, you know? So I know we hammer it to death all the time, but like almost every style is affected by low kicking. If you're a power puncher, you need your legs to fucking make power. If you're a dancer, obviously you need your legs to get around the cage. I'm looking for the inside slip from Francis because Gane so often throws just one jab at a time and doesn't tend to follow up with the right straight that often. He also tends to get wide when he follows up beyond the jab. We've said it before, but like he's one of those guys who hits hard when he's on his toes, and then when he digs in and tries to hit hard, he goes all spazzy and like his kinetic chains stop working. You know, he looks like he doesn't know how to punch when he starts trying to hit, like dig in. Whereas Ngannou has always known how to punch hard and looks weird when he's trying to jab. I also think bodywork is another thing like I want to see from both because Francis has gotten tired in the past. Pretending that that's gone because he smoked Stipe Miocic in one round is, you know, daft. Power is a hard thing to maintain over the rounds if you hit him in the body lots, especially with teeps and things. You know, Ciryl Gane has a lovely teep and a lovely stepping knee. Either of those start connecting, that's going to take it out of Ngannou over the fight. But Ngannou showed lovely body shots against Stipe Miocic, which was great. And important for him because everyone's going to try and run from him, even if they're not a great runner like Ciryl Gane. Everyone's going to try and run from him, so he wants to tire him out and slow their legs down. Body shots. And also, everyone knows he wants to take their head off, so they're going to start weaving at the waist or ducking under things if they're desperate. You know, think of Stipe when he got hit and then he backed up onto the fence and then he just ducked like 3 of Ngannou's punches because Ngannou's trying to take his fucking head off. Bring it down. The body can't be swayed out of the way and stuff like that. You know, with the exception of like Sanshai's weird back the ass up and go, oi! You know what I mean? Like the head is on a swivel. You can move your head all over the place. It's very hard to move your body out of the way of things without using your footwork. And continuing on from bodywork, from Gane, I want to see level changes in clinches. You know, it's very easy to go like, but Stipe Miocic couldn't get him down, and Stipe Miocic is a much more accomplished wrestler. And you're like, no, it's about mixing everything together. I want to see level changes into clinches to smother Ngannou. And, you know, if you can get him swinging big uppercuts when you're going to stand up and try and kick at him, that's always good too. But smothering him in clinches is useful. And also Gane does, or did in his kickboxing career and has in the UFC, done such great work with knees to the body. And it's an area where very few people are good in MMA. Because if you come from a Muay Thai background, you're normally not comfortable making the clinches happen, or you're working on like not getting taken down. And if you come from a wrestling background, you don't really learn to do the knees because you're focusing on taking people down. But guys like Leon Edwards, Marlon Vera, Matt Brown, you know, their success points to a real blind spot in the game. It's just time that needs to be put in. And Gane has been very willing to take people down and show that stuff. So it's a nice thing that he has in the basket. Go for takedowns on the understanding that Ngannou was going to dig underhooks, you know? then come up chest to chest, look for the knees, or head post and look for knees, as he did against Lewis. And one of the, if you saw him against Lewis, he ended up turning his back a couple of times, and not great to do against Ngannou. I mean, just think about JDS turning his fucking back and getting knocked out. But Lewis grabbed a hold of him around the waist, and he leapt in the air and hip heisted like a dude half his size. It's very impressive how he's brought his wrestling game along. I'd be very interested in something like Gane versus Blades to see how he holds up over the distance, stopping takedowns. But that's for down the road. If he loses this one, Blades is probably only a short way off, and if he wins this one, maybe Blades earns a title shot because Ngannou's leaving for Bellator. But yeah, there's a lot of moving parts in this one. I think there's always the chance that Ngannou just knocks him out, but there is also I don't think what Stipe was able to do in that first fight was frustrate Ngannou and grind him down. Now the wrestling was a big part of that, but also the jabbing, the faking it into low kicks. There was an awful lot of Ngannou swinging at air that set up those easy takedowns and set up the jab and the right hand. And certainly as the fight went on, Ngannou got tired and started coming in behind the jab that was just sort of poked out there. And Stipe was inside parrying and throwing the right hand down the inside of it. But in that second fight, Ngannou looked like, firstly, he'd learned some stuff. His wrestling he was much more confident in, but he just looked more prepared for Stipe and less rushed and less... he got him out of there quickly, but he didn't ever look like he was just desperate to get him out there. He looked like he was comfortable in there with Stipe. And that's going to be very interesting if we see that against Ngannou, because these guys have had rounds together. They know each other a little bit. And does that help Gane or Ngannou more? I just hope that has his head on a swivel for the first round, because it is kind of frustrating watching Ngannou have these 18-second stoppages, and you're like, well, I didn't really learn anything about what Ngannou does or any of his habits. He just smoked that guy in seconds. So anything past the first or second round, I'm happy with it. But what else is on this card?